Welcome to the Nation of History channel. Be sure to subscribe and like so you don't miss out on more videos like this one. Swedish photographer Christer Strömholm captured the image of a girl with visual impairment in Hiroshima in 1963. The work is part of a documentary series about long-term effects tied to the city's historical context. The human-centered approach highlights resilience and dignity in the people portrayed. Actress and singer Ann-Margret poses for a photo session during the 1970s, showing a striking look in an orange-toned outfit. Celebrated as a cultural icon, her path in that period was shaped by performances in Las Vegas and major roles in Hollywood movies. Actress Heather Thomas is photographed by a pool in 1983, wearing a sporty swimsuit that was a trend in the 1980s. Famous for her role in the television series Duro na Queda, she became one of the best-known faces in American media, symbolizing the lifestyle of that era. Sisters Margaret and Mary Gibb faced the challenges of a very rare condition with resilience and unity. Born in Massachusetts, they became well known in the entertainment world of their time. In the mid-1940s, a photo of an engagement brought public debate about these women's private lives and autonomy. Actress Meg Miles is shown in a leisure moment during the 1950s, sitting on a hill while holding a thermos and drinking from a cup. Known for her work in film and television, she embodies the pin-up model look of that era, shaped by the rise of visual culture. The ocean liner Titanic remains docked in the port of Southampton shortly before its maiden voyage in April 1912. Smoke from the funnels and activity on the pier show the technical scale of White Star Line shipbuilding. Workers and onlookers watch the final preparations along the coast of England. A rare aerial view captures the pyramids of Giza from a hot air balloon in 1904. The photograph shows the transition between the fertile Nile lands and the dry desert, where the ancient structures dominate the landscape. This kind of pioneering image helped document the archaeological site from a new technical angle. American soldiers wait to land on a landing craft during the historic Normandy invasion on June 6, 1944. Crouched behind metal bulkheads, they prepared to face enemy fortifications on the French coast, an unprecedented logistical effort that would change the course of the conflict. Thousands of prospectors climbed the steep slopes of the Serra Pelada gold mine in Pará during the 1980s. The image, captured by photographer Sebastião Salgado, records a human anthill under extreme working conditions. The photo became a landmark image in the history of Brazilian mining. Two sisters run excitedly to greet their father returning from the battlefront in an adapted wheelchair. The family reunion took place in 1940, showing the physical and emotional marks left by global conflicts that reshaped social life in that turbulent decade. Window washers work suspended on a skyscraper on 48th Street in New York in 1958. The image captures the danger and the vertical scale of urban maintenance in one of the world's densest cities. The photo highlights the courage of these workers amid the steel and glass architecture of the 1950s. A maintenance worker walks along one of the support cables of the Golden Gate Bridge in San Francisco in 1947. The photograph by John Gutman shows the monumental scale of the structure and the danger faced by workers. Below, a boat crosses the waters of the California Bay. The discovery of an 83.5-carat diamond transformed the landscape of Kimberley in 1872. The rush for wealth drew thousands of miners who divided the land into 800 separate claims. This intense manual digging reshaped the dry terrain and set the stage for what would become the largest mine in the world. Two young shoeshine boys carry their toolboxes along a New York street in the 1890s. The image highlights child labor that was common in American cities at the time, where children earned money through informal work. The scene details everyday life of the working class in the late 19th century. A migrant worker walks along an empty road carrying his belongings during the Great Depression in the 1930s. The image shows travel in search of work in the United States after the 1929 economic collapse. In the background, a railroad sign reinforces the isolation of the journey in that period. Workers at Old Bend Mine No. 8 in 1939 ride an underground transport known as a man trip. The route covered about 3.4 miles to the workface in Pennsylvania. The routine required deep travel that connected miners to the heart of coal extraction. The massive Hindenburg airship flies over New York City in 1936, passing alongside the Empire State Building. The German aircraft symbolized the peak of luxury transatlantic travel before a later well-known accident. The contrast between the giant in the sky and the skyscraper captures the golden age of aviation. A Santa Fe locomotive derailed and ended up hanging about 20 feet above a street in Los Angeles on January 25, 1948. The incident drew onlookers who watched the huge metal structure balanced precariously after breaking through the safety barrier. The operational failure disrupted local traffic. Sir Ernest Shackleton's ship remains trapped in pack ice in Antarctica during the Imperial Trans-Antarctic Expedition. The vessel faced crushing ice pressure in the Weddell Sea throughout 1915. Frank Hurley's image details the wooden structure under the region's extreme cold. Endless rows of car chassis move down the Ford assembly line, cementing the Industrial Revolution in the auto sector. Mass production of the iconic Model T during the 1920s allowed the automobile to stop being a luxury item, permanently transforming urban mobility and consumer life on a global scale. Two men demonstrate the size of a punt gun, a large piece of equipment used in the 19th century in commercial activities tied to harvesting waterfowl. The device was mounted on small boats because of its weight, and its power required careful handling. The image illustrates subsistence and trade practices of the period. An aerial view captures the scale of Hoover Dam during its construction on the Colorado River in the 1930s. The massive concrete structure was one of the largest engineering projects of the Great Depression era in the United States. The image details the curved dam wall and the construction site in the canyon. Officials pose inside one of the gigantic steel pipes of Hoover Dam shortly before its completion in the 1930s. The image reveals the monumental scale of the engineering parts used to divert the Colorado River and generate power in the American Southwest. Thousands of workers who built the imposing Chase Manhattan Bank headquarters in New York sit on the steel beams of the structure for a historic photo. The cutting-edge architectural project required monumental human effort and was officially completed in August 1964 amid strong global attention. The monumental construction of the Panama Canal in 1913 reveals the scale of engineering needed to connect the two oceans. Massive concrete structures and lock systems shaped the worksite before the official opening. The project changed global trade routes and symbolized the era's technical mastery. Workers assemble the gigantic structure of the Hindenburg airship in Friedrichshafen in 1935. German engineering showed its massive scale through the use of scaffolding and very tall ladders to cover the hull. This ambitious project symbolized the peak of air transport technology of the era. Technicians use a large crane to lift stone number 23 of the outer ring of the ancient Stonehenge monument. The restoration process was needed after the structure gave way and fell in 1963, requiring a careful logistical operation to preserve the integrity of this important British archaeological site. During the Mummers Parade held in Philadelphia on January 1, 1936, the crowd was delighted by the mechanical man of the future. This creation represented the era's tech imagination, blending popular entertainment with a growing fascination for robotics that would shape the decades to come in America. In the summer of 1929, an intense heat wave hit the United States, with temperatures above 100 degrees Fahrenheit, and even wax mannequins seemed to melt. In the photo, the figures lean over as if exhausted in front of store posters and boxes. It is a curious record of how the heat turned into a public scene in a shop window. Workers lay out thousands of bricks to pave Compton Avenue in St. Louis in 1908. The detailed manual effort in the northern Merrimack area reflects Missouri's rapid urban growth in the early 20th century, when fired clay gave way to more modern and durable streets. The Hughes H-4 Spruce Goose seaplane is shown moored on calm water after its construction in 1947 by billionaire Howard Hughes. The aircraft held the title of the world's largest and completed only one historic flight. The image details its enormous wingspan and the 8 engines that made up this one-of-a-kind engineering feat. A futuristic test track tops the roof of the Fiat factory in Turin, allowing cars to leave the assembly line and head straight onto the elevated roadway. Built in the 1920s, the Lingato structure had internal ramps that streamlined industrial flow, becoming a symbol of modern Italian engineering. Children pose in front of the massive log structure of the world's largest log cabin in Portland in 1938. Originally built in 1905 for an exhibition, the building lasted for decades until it was destroyed by a major fire in 1964. The image preserves the memory of an architectural curiosity that shaped the city's story. Planes fly over the towers and pedestrians cross the roadway during the opening celebration of the Golden Gate Bridge in May 1937. The event marked the debut of one of San Francisco's most iconic engineering works, linking the city to Marin County. The celebration honored the completion of the massive suspension structure. Residents gather on the small street Nieuwedzijds Armsteeg in Amsterdam on August 20, 1916. Signs for businesses like Broodfabriek show everyday Dutch commercial life during the First World War. The narrow architecture and period clothing define the local urban identity. Immigrants look at the Statue of Liberty from the deck of an ocean liner during the 1910s. Edwin Levick's image captures the arrival at the Port of New York shortly before processing at Ellis Island. For many passengers, that sight meant the end of a long journey across the ocean. 2 sailors work a barge on the River Thames in 1876. The scene is part of the Silent Highway series, showing everyday freight transport in the heart of London. Heavy ropes and barrels point to the hard manual labor demanded by river commerce in the Victorian era. A streamlined locomotive sits at the Gare de Lyon in 1937, highlighting the futuristic design of French rail travel before the war. Women passengers in elegant outfits watch the machine, whose rounded nose was designed to reduce air resistance. The platform clock sets the pace of the capital. Passengers wait for their trips at the Greyhound bus terminal in Los Angeles in 1969. The lobby shows the era's futurism with individual seats equipped with ashtrays and small coin-operated televisions, a tech luxury for entertainment on the go. A multifunction piece of furniture from 1951 features an unusual combination of television, radio, and a complete cocktail set. The design aimed to centralize home entertainment and hosting into a single console in the post-war period. The invention reflects the era's tech optimism and American lifestyle. An electric vehicle is being charged in a garage in 1905, showing that clean mobility technology was already being explored in the early 20th century. The image shows the automobile connected to a basic power system, highlighting technical pioneering before gasoline engines became dominant. A vehicle drives through the streets of Paris with an unusual safety device attached to the bumper in 1924. Known as a pedestrian safety guard, the piece aimed to reduce the severity of traffic accidents. The image reflects early concerns about road safety in France. A dense, chaotic network of telephone wires covers the sky over Pratt, Kansas, in 1911. The image shows early signs of over-industrialization, where urban infrastructure struggled to keep up with the rapid growth of communications. A lineman positioned on the pole highlights the scale of the wiring. The imposing RCA building at Rockefeller Center lights up the New York skyline in 1933 with a look that suggests futurism. The night photograph highlights Art Deco architecture within a growing city grid, creating an atmosphere that feels decades ahead. The image symbolizes the peak of American high-rise expansion. A 1936 illustration presents a bold project meant to make the second level of the Eiffel Tower accessible to automobiles in Paris. The proposal included building external spiral ramps connected to the metal structure, reflecting the era's enthusiasm for personal mobility. The plan aimed to integrate the monument into city traffic flow. The ruins of the Theater of Dionysus in Athens appear in a photo dated around 1880, revealing the preservation state of this ancient structure in Greece. The image highlights the stone seating and a small wooden structure in the center of the orchestra area, pointing to the archaeological site. The Parthenon rises over the Acropolis of Athens in a photograph taken in 1869. The image captures the classic Greek temple within the urban backdrop of the time, showing the preservation of ancient ruins. This documentary record is essential for the study of archaeology and the history of Greece. Workers and engineers watched the complex elevator system on the first level of the Eiffel Tower during the early stage of its construction in 1887. Gustave Eiffel's project in Paris pushed the limits of metalworking and vertical transport, becoming an icon of 19th century industrial innovation. A uniformed attendant services a vehicle at a Pan gas station during the 1920s. Vintage-style pumps and safety signs show operating standards in the United States before the Great Depression. The image documents the expansion of North American car culture. A cafe in Los Angeles shows a quirky programmatic style of architecture in 1934, standing out because of a huge coffee cup on the roof. The place offered affordable options like barbecue sandwiches for 15 cents. This building style aimed to catch the eye of drivers in the growing car culture. A promotional vehicle shaped like a giant coffee pot draws the attention of children on a street in Sweden in 1956. The Volvo X7000 truck served as a mobile marketing unit for the Gevalia coffee brand, aiming to attract new customers. This kind of creative traveling advertising was common for promoting brands at the time. Manchester City player Mike Summerby demonstrates the built-in record player in his new Volvo P1800 in 1967. Automotive technology aimed to bring music entertainment directly into the vehicle's dashboard. The image captures a moment of innovation and style in England in that decade. The Parameter Dunkley appeared as a tech innovation to make life easier for mothers and nannies in the early 20th century. The motorized device attached to a baby carriage allowed movement through streets with less physical effort. This unusual invention reflects the era's search for practical mechanized solutions. A woman uses a one-leg seat, a portable resting solution that gained some popularity in 1953. The device allowed people to sit in lines or at outdoor events in a practical way, reflecting the demand for convenience and the post-war wave of utility design innovations. A prospector uses a pan to search for gold in the sands of a beach in Nome, Alaska in 1900. The image comes from the peak of the region's gold rush, drawing thousands of people looking for quick fortune in the freezing northern waters and dramatically changing the local economy. During the early years of the 20th century, the auto industry tried to prove the mechanical durability of its new vehicles. In 1915, this GMC truck took on tough logging work, hauling massive logs that pushed the era's load limits and balance. Loggers from the Scott and Graff Lumber Company gather for a shared meal in a rustic Minnesota bunkhouse in 1913. The rough wood setting and poor lighting reveal the harsh conditions these workers faced during the expansion of the American lumber industry. A scene in Massachusetts in the 1920s shows the Noonan family settled into their large, imposing convertible automobile. With their 13 children spread across the seats, the image illustrates North American domestic life and the progress of the auto industry at the time. The entrance of the elephant cave, known as Goa Gajah, reveals an imposing face carved into rock on the island of Bali. This archaeological site dates back to the 11th century and shows influences from both Hinduism and Buddhism, serving as a spiritual center for meditation and religious rituals in Indonesia. A musician plays the harp atop the ruins of the Rock of Cashel in front of a crowd in 1910. The event in Ireland highlights the instrument's cultural importance as a national symbol during a period of strong Gaelic identity. In the background, fields and stone structures create the county's historic setting. Two girls race at high speed while riding sheep across the fields of Cornwall in England in 1969. The image captures an unusual leisure moment in the British countryside, showing the freedom and creativity of children's play in rural areas in the 1960s. Four boys pose for a portrait in the Netherlands in 1904, wearing traditional Dutch clothing. The image highlights wooden clogs and wide pants, typical garments that reflect rural daily life and European identity in the early 20th century. A nomadic family poses in front of their adapted wagon in London in 1877, photographed by John Thompson. The image details the wooden structure with a chimney, revealing itinerant life and improvised housing solutions that existed on the outskirts of Victorian London. A Japanese street vendor walks down a village road during the 1930s, carrying a huge variety of baskets and handmade brooms on his cart. The scene shows the persistence of traditional commerce and bamboo household craft making before Japan's full industrialization. Turkish wrestlers and a former Greek athlete pose in formal clothing and typical hats during a Greco-Roman wrestling competition in the United States in 1909. The meeting of these foreign athletes on American soil shows the popularity of international strength and skill tournaments in the early 20th century. Young Maasai warriors take part in the traditional jumping dance known as adamu on an African savanna. This rite of passage shows the strength, endurance, and agility of the men in the community, serving as a deeply rooted cultural expression that preserves the identity and ancestral customs of this semi-nomadic people. A young student watches closely as a master watchmaker does careful, detailed work through the shop window of a specialized workshop. The business displays a sign in French pointing to the professional's technical skill in his trade. The scene captures the contrast between youthful curiosity and the precision of a traditional craft. The image shows a man wearing a swim instructor uniform next to a woman on a beach in the early 20th century. Although it has been shared as if it were Nikola Tesla, the photo actually portrays an extra in a typical seaside setting from the 1900s, wearing Victorian-era swimwear. A digitally forged image suggests that boxer Jack Johnson fought a mobile robot in 1910. In reality, that kind of technology did not exist at the time, and the image is a modern creation made with artificial intelligence, mixing real historical figures with retro-futuristic science fiction elements. An inventor tests an experimental aircraft with a circular design during the 1890s, a period marked by bold attempts to take to the skies. The image captures rough early engineering and the courage of aviation pioneers who, before controlled flight, explored many different aerodynamic shapes. Naturalist William Beebe looks through the porthole of the bathysphere, the world's first deep-sea exploration vessel, in 1930. Developed in partnership with Otis Barton, the steel capsule allowed humans to reach ocean depths that had never been explored before. President Richard Nixon visits the Apollo 11 astronauts in a mobile quarantine unit on July 24, 1969. After the historic return from the moon, the crew stayed isolated to prevent any biological contamination, a strict procedure used by the National Aeronautics and Space Administration in the early years of space exploration. Computer scientist Margaret Hamilton poses next to the manuals that contain the navigation software code developed for the Apollo program in 1969. Her groundbreaking work at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology was essential to the success of the moon landing, laying the foundation for modern software engineering. Cosmonaut Valentina Tereshkova, the first woman to travel to space, presents a badge to astronaut Neil Armstrong during a meeting in 1970. The image captures a moment of scientific diplomacy between the Soviet Union and the United States during the Cold War, bringing together icons of space exploration. Jamie Lee Curtis poses next to a road sign on a highway during the 1980s. The image plays visually with the warning of danger and curves ahead, highlighting the actress's style and presence. She became a Hollywood star after hits in thrillers and comedies. Kathy Ireland appears on a baseball field during a photo shoot in 1987. The model wears a white one-piece swimsuit and a cap, holding a bat in a batting stance for the Sports Illustrated swimsuit issue. The production reflects the sporty look and pop culture of that decade. Women from the Victorian era display extremely elaborate hairstyles and long hair during the 1860s. At that time, very long hair was a symbol of femininity and social status, often kept for years without being cut, reflecting strict beauty standards and the customs of a conservative society. Two Austrian ladies operate one of the early automobile models in Vienna in 1900. The image was originally published in a specialized magazine, highlighting the introduction of this technology into Belle Epoque European society. The image marks the transition in transportation and the modernization of urban mobility in the early 20th century. An employee at the New York Times works on the manual layout of the sports section in 1942. The method used metal movable type and image blocks to assemble pages before printing. The image details the hands-on precision required in the American printing industry during the Second World War. Female college students do schoolwork outdoors during the 1940s. Sitting at wooden desks, they drink bottles of Coca-Cola, a growing symbol of North American mass culture in the post-war era. Their clothing and hairstyles reflect the typical mid-20th century women's look. Members of the Collinsville Fire Department pose proudly with their truck in front of the station in Madison County. The photo, taken on May 3, 1926, reflects the modernization of emergency services in the United States, using motor vehicles that permanently replaced the old horse-drawn rigs. A towering Santa Claus, about 13 feet tall, drew curious looks in front of the Livingston department store in Bloomington. During the 1940s, businesses in Illinois tried to revive the Christmas spirit through grand decorations that delighted families and children downtown. The original sign on Mount Lee shows the word Hollywoodland before it was changed in 1949. The structure was first built to promote a real estate development in the Los Angeles area. The white letters contrast with the dry hillside vegetation, defining the California landscape in those decades. Pablo Picasso appears in his art studio in Paris in 1944, posing next to one of his monumental Cubist works. Even under occupation and the restrictions of the time, the Spanish artist kept producing intensely in the French capital, reaffirming his central role in the global art avant-garde. Filmmaker Alfred Hitchcock appears dressed up with a bowl-cut wig while pretending to play drums in a light-hearted parody. The skit took place in 1964 when the director decided to portray Ringo Starr, riding the massive wave of global popularity of the British band The Beatles. A man fills up his vehicle at a gas station in the United States during the 1920s. The scene highlights a visible-style fuel pump common at the time and the early commercial architecture that followed the rapid expansion of the auto industry and the growth of American highways. If you enjoyed this video and want to support the channel, please use the Super Thanks tool below. Your contribution helps us keep bringing you amazing historical content. Thank you so much for your support, and see you in the next video.